Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channels. As always, I am Bryson Carver, very excited to be with you on this Friday. And, you know, I'm wearing a Red Sox hat. Obviously, I'm wearing red to celebrate a Red Sox W on opening day in Seattle against a very, very good Mariners team. And the reason I'm doing that is obviously 1-0, listen, we got a better chance of going 162-0 than the two teams I got going to the World Series, the Astros and the Dodgers. Okay, so we got a better chance. And also, too, let's be real. This is probably going to be the absolute peak of the Red Sox season. We're going to finish last the American League East. I hate to be a downer today to start the show, but I am a realistic Red Sox fan. And so enjoying the very rare moments of excitement for this team, I'll take what I can get. Shout out to Rafi Devers, by the way, another, homering on opening day. He'll be one of our few bright spots, unless the front office trades him because they're cheap. But we got a lot to get into today. No Red Sox, no baseball, although we did have some fun opening day action yesterday in Texas, in Houston. Some great games yesterday. Great March Madness games as well. But going to be discussing my man, Draymond Green. I'm a Warriors fan. I'm a Draymond Green fan. But I would say what's understood needs to be said, but I'm here to offer a little bit of a different perspective on the Draymond Green ejection against the Orlando Magic the other day in Orlando. In particular, what it means for Golden State this season, what it means for Draymond and for Steph. I'll get into that. Also, the single most ridiculous controversy I've ever seen for a prospect going into the draft. Caleb Williams' fingernails and color of his phone case. More on that in just a second. Also, JJ McCarthy, nice kid, like him. I cannot compute why exactly he's projected to potentially be as high as the second overall pick in the draft, if not the third overall pick by either Washington or New England, respectively. I'll explain why in about 30 minutes or so, 40 minutes or so. Also, my Steelers meet with Michael Penix Jr. Y'all know that's my guy. I think he's the second best QB in this draft to Caleb, and I think he's going to be a superstar at the next level. And I'm telling you, the Pittsburgh Steelers, if it's available, should draft him. I'll detail that later in the show. And at the end of today's show, another weird loss for Boston at the hands of a Trae Young-less Atlanta Hawks team. I'll detail why I'm still not terribly concerned about Boston moving forward at the top of the hour. We're having a little bit of a delay on the clips and the videos to sort of illustrate and further my Draymond Green take. So we're going to postpone the Draymond Green take about 10-15 minutes. I was going to lead the show off with it, but instead we'll wait another 10-15 minutes. Let these clips get ready to get in. For some reason, again, there's some lag on it. We'll get them ready in 10 to 15 minutes or so. So I'll start with their second story, which honestly could lead the show in all seriousness. And this is not that serious of a topic in the sense of who it's about. But first, if there's one thing we can all agree to, it's that social media at its heart, maybe not what it was designed for, but at its heart is a vehicle for people with no lives, with seemingly no purpose in life whatsoever, to go after people who do. And ultimately, it is a device for those who wake up outraged, and it is an outrage machine to go off on people, go off on stories, however they feel, however much they feel like it, whatever the case may be. It's a day-to-day thing. There's a new shiny toy, so to speak. And in this instance, it's Caleb Williams' fingernails and phone color of his phone case. I'm not kidding. This was enough to outrage people on social media to the point where, you know what? Painted fingernails, pink phone case, can't trust him. We can show you the picture here of Caleb. He was at a USC women's basketball game. Here's Caleb Williams. Oh my goodness. The painted nails, the phone case is pink. I don't really know what to do with myself right now. I may just end the show. You know, I have had a take on Caleb Williams. Listen, we know he's far and away the best quarterback in the draft, and I love Michael Penix Jr., who I'll talk about at the end of the show. Love Michael Penix Jr. Drake May's got some qualities I like. I'm skeptical on McCarthy, skeptical on Bo Nix. Obviously, Jaden Daniels really athletic. This kid's by far the best in the draft, and I think a big reason there's been so much of a nitpicking circus on Caleb Williams for the last month has been because we all know he's going number one, and the Bears all but confirmed it by trading Justin Fields to my Steelers. It's a done deal. It's going to happen. So we're looking at a prospect that many draft evaluators have hyped as, yeah, it's the best prospect since Andrew Luck. Yeah, he's better than Trevor Lawrence. Heck, he might be as good as Elway and Manning. from a pure prospect standpoint. You got to remember, Mahomes wasn't that hyped up. He was a 10th overall pick in 2017. Might be one of the greatest quarterback prospects we've ever seen. It's a belief that I vehemently subscribe to. It's unbelievable. So here's my question about Caleb Williams and the concern around him. Does he have a questionable legal history, like a Baker Mayfield, or more so like a Johnny Manziel? No, not at all. No, he's had no run-ins with the law. He seems to have a good record there. Okay, that's good. By the way, didn't stop Baker from going number one. I don't want to relitigate Baker's history because Baker, to his credit, has matured a lot in the last few years, and I give him tons of credit for that. Okay, does Caleb Williams seem to have an issue at the podium? Does he seem to have an issue with press conferences? No, if you stop listening to internet narratives on, as a media professor I have in college, the artist formerly known as Twitter, if you ignore those narratives, go to the combine press conferences, go watch his pro day press conferences, really good. And most of the best quarterbacks are. Mahomes, excellent after games at the podium. Win, lose, or draw. Brady was, Eli Manning was, my man Dak Prescott, whatever you think of Dak, he is an A+++ in press conferences, in front of the media. Joe Burrow's really good. Josh Allen, one of my criticisms of Josh, I don't think Josh is that great. Lamar's good in front of the media. CJ Stroud's good in front of the media. Caleb Williams already has mastered it before he's even in the National Football League. So, well, that's not a concern. Leadership qualities. No, that doesn't seem to be a concern either. Teammates like Brendan Rice and coaches like Lincoln Riley all but swear by his confidence, by his maturity, by his work ethic. They love him. He has a pink phone case, paints his nails. Oh, he has an eccentric fashion taste. He, dare I say, may care a bit more about his fashion than he does his game. Interesting. Seems like I remember a select few individuals who have had, again, eccentric fashion taste. Somebody like a guy I believe to be the second best quarterback in football. Man by the name of Joe Burrow. Let's look at a picture of Joe Burrow here. Didn't think we'd be doing like a fashion show here on Carving Up Live, but here we are. But Joe Burrow, oh, look at that. An all pink, fit there. He's got the t-shirt in there, the white t-shirt with the pink teddy bear. Oh, that's really out there, Joe. We could show another picture here. This is the picture that got him the nickname, the outfit that got him the nickname Joe Shiesty or Joe Burrow, whatever, however you want to phrase it. Oh, look at that. Thick jacket and the Nike chain. Very out there, Joe. How about Travis Kelce? Not a quarterback, but, a guy who's, this is just one instance of here, but, like the orange coat with a kind of like a almost pajama hoodie type look. Really just not that conventional for a tight end in the National Football League, I must say. Well, tight ends aren't held to the same standard as quarterbacks in terms of maturity. You know what? You're absolutely right. They're not. Let's look at somebody like from the past. Joe Namath. Broadway Joe Cool back in the day. Now, Joe Namath had that big fur coat and the shades on the sideline. Was quite the fashionista, if I do say so myself, and to a certain degree still is to this day. Very eccentric type of guy. Oh, you guys are going to hate this one, you Caleb Williams haters. How about the greatest player in the history of the sport, Mr. Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. at the Met Gala? Oh, that's quite the risky outfit decision, Tom. My goodness, really going for it. For the record, not Tom's best fit, but at the Met Gala, Tom Brady. Caleb Williams has painted nails in a pink phone case. And that's enough to get people worked up on Twitter, which a lot of things get people worked up on Twitter. You could tell somebody good morning and they'd say, hey, you can't tell me what kind of morning I'm supposed to have. How dare you? The idea that this is somehow a knock against Caleb Williams shows me pretty clear resume. No issues with the law, no arrests, no legal history. Teammates love him. Coach swears by him. Let's see what else we have here. He's great at the podium, great with the media. shows up for his other teammates' press conferences and is like a cheerleader for them, as all great leaders are. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but doesn't seem to be like much of a problem. This idea that it's not going to fit Chicago. Yeah, Chicago had Dennis Rodman. Now, I know Dennis Rodman, not a quarterback and not the best player in the Bulls, not the face of the Bulls. Obviously, that was Michael Jordan, who himself, by the way, was quite the, did care about how he presented himself from a look standpoint, from a fashion standpoint. But Dennis Rodman was about as, and by the way, Dennis Rodman did have issues at times with the law, right? Did have some off-court stuff. Did go to Vegas, smack dab in the middle of the season. Chicago didn't care. You know why? Because he contributed to winning championships. If Caleb Williams is what I and most people, most draft evaluators think he is, Chicago's not going to care about the color of his phone case. The fact that this is even a controversy is a joke. It is, again, this idea that you have to look a certain way as a quarterback. Listen, we can't all look like George Clooney or Idris Elba. Okay, we can't all present ourselves a certain way. It's some people have different tastes than others. The fact that this is a major story regarding Caleb Williams in this upcoming draft, again, tells me everything I need to know about what some people value in their day-to-day lives. If you have questions about Caleb, hey, look, no quarterback has ever really worked in Chicago ever. You could argue the Bears' best quarterback was a guy who didn't even really care about playing the position, Jay Cutler. If you want to go way back, Sid Luckman. That's pre-Super Bowl days. So, it's kind of like the Ohio State syndrome, right? Up until C.J. Stroud, man, most Ohio State quarterbacks did not work at the next level. For a number of reasons, C.J. Stroud broke the mold. Man, is Caleb, is he good enough to break the mold in Chicago? Not a lot of Bears quarterbacks have gone on to have great careers. I mean, no Bears quarterbacks ever thrown for 30 touchdowns or 4,000 yards. That's an absolutely legitimate concern about Caleb Williams. Hey, cold weather. I talked about, Deion Sanders talked about, hey, can he handle the cold weather? I don't think that's near the concern as people are making it out to be, but it's a fair concern. I mean, Southern California isn't exactly chilly. Chicago is one of the coldest cities in America. That's a fair criticism. Hey, the NFC North, man, you got Detroit. You got Green Bay. Both teams are great and getting better. The Minnesota Vikings are in a rebuild, but they have Justin Jefferson. They have a great coach, and they're probably going to take a quarterback. Good defense. Brian Flores runs that side of the ball. NFC North's a tough division. That's a perfectly legitimate concern for Caleb Williams. But the idea that his fashion taste is going to halt him from being a franchise quarterback or should dissuade the Bears from making all these moves and making him their franchise guy is laughable. It's silly. It's barely intelligible from an NFL draft evaluating perspective. This guy is, again, in terms of ability, I don't think you have any questions about his ability, but listen, a lot of talented guys haven't succeeded at the next level. We've seen that before. The idea that it's going to hold Caleb back is laughable. Absolutely laughable. And I find it comical. I find it truly, truly comical. Again, a lot of other guys have been fashionable. Joe Burrow, that's kind of his brand. Joe Shiesty. Travis Kelce. The fashion taste, I tell you, it's really held Travis Kelce back from, being the greatest postseason tight end we've ever seen. Held Joe Namath back from maybe the greatest upset in NFL history and being the best quarterback in the history of the Jets franchise. It really held Tom Brady back from being the greatest quarterback of all time. He, by the way, went to 2 Met Galas. Caleb showed up to a women's basketball game with painted nails and a pink phone case. That's his particular fashion taste. Okay. If Caleb had issues with the media, if Caleb had an off-field history, if Caleb had a bunch of issues with teammates and his coaches were concerned about him, we've seen coaches in years past, we don't have to name names, but plenty of coaches with quarterbacks coming in the NFL were like, man, I don't know if he's mature enough. I don't know if he's ready to go. Lincoln Riley swears by this kid. And by the way, Lincoln Riley's coached Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, and Jalen Hurts. He knows what a great quarterback looks like. So I find it about as silly as it gets that this is the concerns with one Caleb Williams. It's absolutely hilarious. But It's Twitter. It's social media. It's kind of what it was designed for. No, actually, I'm sorry. It's not what it was designed for, but it's what it's devolved into. This is, if you want to have questions about Caleb Williams, the color of his phone case should not be one of them. Okay. At any rate, again, I find it quite silly. And again, we'll talk more about other quarterbacks this draft. Actually, two of them. JJ McCarthy, going to get into him in about 15, 20 minutes or so. Mock drafts are having JJ McCarthy going as high as second to the Washington Commanders or third to the New England Patriots. Again, I'll save my take for a little later, but it would be a big mistake for Washington. I think it'd be a colossal mistake for New England for a number of reasons. And again, I don't think JJ McCarthy is like this bad prospect. People are going to assume, longtime listeners of Carving It Up, and we appreciate every single one of you, as well as new listeners as well. Thanks for stopping by on a Good Friday. That, you know, I was as low, matter of fact, not as low. I was the lowest person on Mac Jones coming in the 2021 draft. I'm like, I don't know what he does well. I can point to a lot of things that he does horribly. Can't move, noodle arm. Turns out, as we found out, if his first few years in New England, horrible locker room guy. That's not a lot of those things were not the case with JJ McCarthy. So I want to make that clear. I'm not saying I thought Mac Jones was a backup when he came into the NFL. I don't feel that way about JJ McCarthy. So my take on him in about 20 minutes or so. Also, Michael Penix Jr. visiting my Pittsburgh Steelers. You know, I know we traded for Fields, and I know Russell Wilson is on a one-year deal. You know, veteran guy, threw 26 touchdown passes last year, which is double the entire Steelers quarterback room from a year ago. But I think there's a way that this could work if the Steelers draft Penix, and I'll detail later why they should, that would make the Russell and Fields move make even more sense. But I'll detail that coming up soon. As I think one of the Draymond Green clips are ready to go. Hopefully we should have it in here pretty soon. Again, for some reason, there's just been a lag, a delay on it for something, because again, for the YouTube audience, I want to kind of crystallize it and allow it to sort of add to my overall take. Is that it? Okay, so we've got one of them. See if we can't get the next few in there as well. Again, we'll wait for those to load. But you know what? I can go ahead and get into the Draymond Green segment. So many of you know I am a diehard Golden State Warriors fan. Since the 2013-14 season, this was following their first postseason run in 2013. And I saw this little skinny guy who played at a little college called Davidson, Steph Curry. And he torches the Nuggets in round one, the 3-seed Nuggets, the Warriors coached by Mark Jackson, shock the NBA world, knock off the Nuggets, go to the second round, push the Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili led Spurs to 6 games. I mean, that was like okay, this team is on the rise. This San Antonio team, which that was the same Spurs team that lost to the Heat on the Ray Allen shot in Game 6, and then LeBron went off on them in Game 7. They were that literally 5 seconds away from a championship. Warriors took them 6 games, so it's like, okay, I think I want to be a fan of this team. They're on the come up. And so been a fan of that team ever since. And I feel like I've kind of, in an odd way, sort of grown up. I'm 20 years old. I feel like I've kind of grown up with Steph, Clay, and Draymond, obviously the core of the Warriors dynasty. The engine of it, obviously Steve Kerr comes on in 2014, and the rest is history. But these are some dark days in the Warriors run. There's no question about that. So, in a win against the Orlando Magic, that my Warriors got, a massive win against the Magic, I might add, especially in regards to the play-in standings. The Houston Rockets have won 10 straight. Like, the Warriors really need to ratchet it up, win as many games as possible, hold off the Rockets, and put themselves in, this feels weird to say, but the best position possible in the play-in tournament, and let the chips fall where they may from there. But less than 4 minutes into a game against the Orlando Magic, on the second night of a Florida back-to-back, they just played in Miami the night before. Quick flight, or probably quick bus ride to Orlando to take on the Magic. Keep in mind, this is a Magic team that is 4th place in the Eastern Conference that isn't going to make a long playoff run just due to their youth. But we see Paolo Banchero, we see Jalen Suggs, Wagner. That team is coming. They got a very bright future ahead of them, and they play about as good a defense as anybody in the league. Very physical defense. So it's a big game for Golden State. In less than 4 minutes in the game, Draymond Green gets thrown out of the game. So we will show you the clip here. Draymond, at the start of this clip, Draymond has already picked up his first technical foul. He's arguing with the ref about a foul call on Andrew Wiggins. We'll show you right here. This is after he's picked up his first technical. He continues to argue to the ref. Okay, you see Steph come around there. He's like, okay, he's listening to the ref, and he's looking at Draymond. Hey, all right, buddy, come on. Let's back out of this. This isn't a battle worth fighting. And Draymond continues to argue. Warriors brass are kind of holding him back, and it's a timeout. Refs are walking away. Draymond's still going, still yelling. And right there, the magic 2, 3, 4 words, and he's gone out of the game. He's tossed. Here's the thing, though. You see Draymond, he's still yelling, going to the locker room. He was already walking to the locker room. Then they tossed him. That's what's wild. So Draymond knows he's getting ejected right there. So you see he leaves Steph. Steph's just standing there like, are you kidding me? We'll show Steph's reaction overall in just a second. But Draymond, and we know his history this year, right? The choke of Rudy Gobert, which I defended to a certain degree. He choked Gobert too long. That was the problem. But Gobert's going to choke Klay Thompson. Nah. Like, I defend Draymond there. Did not defend him in the situation with Nurkic. Unprovoked. Draymond just comes around, swings on Nurkic, clocks him in the jaw, and gets suspended for, I think it ended up being like 15 to 20 games. It was an indefinite suspension. He came back in mid-January from a game that was played in mid-December. So this is another instant in a must-win game for Golden State. I don't think it's unfair to say that with about 10 games to go in the regular season, you're trying to hold off a hot Rockets team and try and climb as high as you can possibly climb in the play-in standings and try and make the playoffs somehow, much less try and go on a run. Just get into the playoffs. So I've been a guy who's defended Draymond Green at length for really his entire career, and certainly in the duration of this show, about four and a half years, because I think his intelligence from a basketball IQ standpoint, as well as for his fire, his competitive fervor on a team that, not the Warriors don't want competitive guys. Steph's about as competitive as any guy in the history of the game. But, emotional, leaders of your basketball team. Draymond's sort of in the class with a Dennis Rodman to a certain degree, although I think Draymond can absolutely do more things on the court than Rodman could, although Rodman was, of course, one of the greatest rebounders and defensive players we've seen. But Draymond's value to the Warriors, it's why I took his side in the whole Jordan Poole incident. And we saw the fall of Jordan Poole that season. We definitely see it to an even greater degree here in Washington. I know he just had a 38-point game, but the Wizards are terrible. He's had literally no impact on winning whatsoever. And so clearly the Warriors made the right decision sticking with Draymond over Jordan Poole. But Draymond is in a position where he could very well end this dynasty. If it hasn't been ended already, I'm holding on the dynasty by a string. I've said often this season that there's a chance the dynasty may be over as currently constructed, but as long as you have Steph Curry in his prime, your dynasty's still going, as long as you can add other pieces around him. Here's the problem. He may drive Steph out of Golden State. And I'll explain why. I have talked about this for the last few months, that I'm a little nervous for the 2024 Olympics. Not in terms like Team USA winning. Listen, Team USA is going to win. That roster is loaded. I fear that Steph at the 2024 Olympics could be very similar to LeBron at the 2008 Olympics. Steph in Paris, LeBron in Beijing. I feel like this could be very similar. Because remember LeBron, hey, I'm Mr. Cleveland. And keep in mind, LeBron's much younger than Steph is now. LeBron was barely into his 20s. Steph is 36. But LeBron goes into Beijing. Man, I'm a Cavalier for life. This is home. Akron, Ohio, the kid from Akron, chosen one. This is my city. It's my home. Then he goes to Beijing and plays with Kobe and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh and Melo and Chris Paul, Dwight Howard, and he looks around, he's like, hey, so this is what it's like to play with great players. Yeah, this is a lot more fun than carrying Zydrunas Ilgauskas and, Anderson Varejao out of the finals in 2007 and getting teams whose second best player is Mo Williams to a 60-win season. This is a lot more fun. Yeah. Maybe I'd consider this, go to Miami with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, and that's ultimately what happened 2 years later. I want to show you Steph's reaction. Many have seen it, but if you haven't seen Steph's reaction to the Draymond ejection, we'll show you right here. This is right after Draymond's been tossed out of the game. Here you go. So Steph is just, this is 4 minutes of the game, mind you. Steph is just hand on knees. Oh my gosh, what's going on? Kerr's trying to console him. And you see Steph right here. He's literally wiping tears from his face. I showed this clip to my mother. My mom is, shout out to mom. I showed her this clip and she's like, Steph's crying. I'm like, are you sure? I don't think Steph's not crying. And I rewatch it like 30 minutes later at halftime. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's literally in tears. And it's funny, I just talked about Caleb Williams, like, oh, the concern, he's crying in his mother's eyes. And I've said, give me an athlete who's moved to the point of tears because they lost as opposed to the apathetic one. Like, give me Caleb Williams over Ben Simmons any day of the week. Steph is so competitive, wants to win so bad. He's moved to the point of tears. And, mind you, game the Warriors desperately needed. In a game Draymond obviously wanted to be thrown out of, because, again, we'll show you one more time. Okay, so again, he's arguing with the referee. Steph's trying to break it up, yada, yada, yada. But just watch it about 10 seconds. Draymond uses the magic words that we are definitely not going to repeat on this show and certainly not on Good Friday and on Holy Week. But Draymond is going to walk away, say something, and then just turn around and continuously, it's coming up right here, magic word right there, walks away, then he's ejected. It's not he's ejected and then walks off. Draymond wanted to be thrown out of that basketball game in a must-win game for the Warriors. Thus, this from Steph Curry, who it's a dagger shot against the Magic. Here we go, step back, Steph being Steph, clutch player of the year, no doubt about it. And he night-nights the Orlando crowd in very animated fashion. You see his teammates there celebrating, and watch Steph. He's going to come around to the bench. He's high-fiving. Let's go. Dagger shot. We're going to win this game. He's going to walk to the bench, high-five Moses Moody, high-five somebody else, and, kicks 2 chairs over. I mean, he's like mad hyped. And it's like, this is a big game for the Warriors, but it is Orlando. Like, I know Orlando's good this year, but it is Orlando. This isn't Boston, the Lakers, Denver. This isn't a serious contender or a team you have a history with. It's the Magic, There's no history between Golden State and Orlando, at least from what I'm aware of. So I think that crystallized what Steph is thinking about. And that crystallizes why this is as selfish, and I love Draymond, but as selfish of an act as you could possibly have. And you're like, Bryson, man, the Warriors just need to move on from Draymond Green. They just need to get Draymond Green out of the building. That would be easy if Draymond wasn't impactful. And this is the part that's frustrated me. If Draymond was terrible, I'd say, Steve Kerr, just bench him. Just bench him. Don't play him. Move on from him after the season. Somebody will take him. Here's the problem. He's still really, really important. We'll show you the stats right here in terms of Draymond. Whether he finishes games, gets ejected out of games, we'll show you the stats right here, okay? When Draymond plays a full game, the Warriors are 9 games over 500. They're 26-17. That's pretty darn good. They're 1-3 this season when he gets thrown out, and they're 11-14 when he doesn't play. You see the asterisk right there next to gets thrown out. Since 2019, the Golden State Warriors are 2-11 when Draymond Green gets tossed out of a basketball game. And keep in mind, 2019, that's part of the Kevin Durant era, okay? So that KD was there, 2-11 since 2019 when Draymond Green is thrown out of a basketball game. So he's still valuable. They're an exponentially better team when he's on the floor as opposed to when he's off it, which is what makes it worse. And Steve Kerr, I talked about this with the Warriors on Monday. Steve Kerr talked about when there was all this criticism, oh, Steve, why aren't you playing Steph more minutes? And Steve almost looked annoyed by it. He said, are you kidding me? Steph Curry has carried this franchise for 15 years, and I'm just going to run him into the ground before we even get to the play-in tournament? Are you kidding me? After all, he's made all of us richer. He's won all of us a bunch of rings. And that's how you want me to respond? Steve Kerr gets the bigger picture. From Steph's perspective, I think a reason why he was moved to the point of tears is because of how hard this season has been. And what I mean by that, is Steph's thinking, okay, your job is just to be good at basketball, to impact winning for us at a high level. I wrote this down, the things that Steph and the Warriors have dealt with. I've had basically from Steph's perspective, I've had to merge a team with a bunch of veterans, Clay, CP3, Draymond, and a bunch of kids, Kuminga, Moody, Pajemski, Trace Jackson Davis. Okay? I've had to manage Clay's decline. Now, Clay has been harder on himself than anybody's been on him. So it's been kind of a roller coaster with Clay. I'm in the starting lineup. Now I'm on the bench. Now I'm back in the starting lineup. Can I get back to some semblance of what I used to be? Steph's had to deal with that and trying to have Clay in a good headspace. Andrew Wiggins has been a head case all season long. He was great in the win against Orlando, especially in the fourth quarter. Andrew Wiggins has been an 18-point-per-game guy his whole tenure in Golden State. Until this year, he's averaging 12 a game. He's not even close to the same player he used to be. Bob Myers left last season. Bob Myers is going to be a first-ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greatest executives in NBA history. Left. Mike Dunleavy Jr., I think, has done a solid job. I like the guy. He's not Bob Myers. One of our assistant coaches tragically passed away at a team dinner 2.5 months ago. I've had to manage all of this. Your job is just don't get thrown out of massive games that we need to win. That's Draymond's job. And Steph is looking at the perspective of, again, I've got all this on my shoulders. To quote Bill Belichick, just do your job. Just do your job. Don't get thrown out of meaningful games for us. And so I'm concerned to go back to the Beijing point with LeBron. LeBron saw, man, playing with great players. Oh, this is way better than being stuck in Cleveland with Mo Williams. Steph in the 2024 Olympics are going to play with a few guys by the names of LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Jason Tatum, Joel Embiid. Pretty good players. And given Steph's history, I've played in 6 finals. I've been in the playoffs and been on a bunch of deep playoff runs. You're telling me at age 36, I have to carry this group? Instead, I could play I could go to Phoenix and play with KD. I could go to LA, play with LeBron. You know, kind of like a swan song together, right? You know, get our 5th and 6th championships together. You're telling me Steph wouldn't at least consider it? That's what scares me. Is that if this Warriors season were to go up in smoke, and again, I am still clinging almost solely because I have Steph Curry on my basketball team, that maybe, just maybe, you could put together one more run with this group. I've all season long, I've been close, but I've yet to sell my stock on my Warriors. But if the season goes up in smoke, they lose in the play-in tournament. Heck, maybe they don't even make the play-in tournament. That Steph doesn't at least think about moving on. LeBron's got Anthony Davis. KD's got Devin Booker. Luka's got Kyrie. Tatum has Jaylen Brown, Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis. Joel Embiid has Tyrese Maxey. Kawhi has Paul George. Nikola Jokic has Jamal Murray. Second best player on the Warriors is probably Jonathan Kuminga, and he's my age. Not Steph, I'm not talking about from Steph's perspective, I'm talking about from my perspective. He's like 21 years old. He's a kid. He wouldn't think about it. Giannis has Dame. Here's what made it even worse. Just to crystallize how bad this was for the Golden State Warriors. You saw how hyped Steph was, right? When he was kicking chairs over, doing the night-night. The Warriors, or I think it was the Warriors Bleacher Report. I saw it on Bleacher Report's social media. Steph is walking to the locker room, and there's a tunnel full of Warriors fans. Let's go, Steph. High-fiving Steph. He's high-fiving them. Let's go. High-fiving other members of the Warriors organization. And at the hall stands none other than Draymond Green. Look at this video, and I'll sort of criticize it for those that are listening on the podcast, Spotify, Apple, otherwise. Steph, let's go. High-fiving fans, a bunch of fans in there, high-fiving them, let's go. A bunch of people taking videos. Here's Draymond. You'll see Draymond right there at the end of the hallway doing the night-night. And Steph, you see Steph there. He's like the quick dap. It's like, you're standing right there, so I kind of have to dap you up. And I'm not just going to walk past you, even though I'm probably really pissed off with you right now. That to me, they call Steph and Clay the Splash Brothers, and that's appropriate. But Draymond and Steph are like brothers. They are close, man. Steph's kind of like the older brother, right? And Steph's an oldest child in his own life. Steph is, kind of measured, animated from time to time, as we saw in that picture, but in the video, but in general, pretty chill dude, right? Draymond, that's not off the court. He's a pretty chill guy, but on the court, well, we see who Draymond is. This to me is like, because often, again, athletes see their teammates more than they do their families because they're on the road with them so much, they're practice, games, all that. This to me is the equivalent. Draymond's reaction to Steph after all that happened. Hey, Steph, big grin, night, what's up, man? And Steph just dabs him up. Yeah, I'm out of here. That to me is the equivalent of if like a woman found out her husband was cheating on her and then like caught him in the act. And then the next day the husband sees her and says, hey, honey, how was your day? Just oblivious to, you think I'm just going to forget what happened? That to me was the Steph Draymond thing. Draymond gets tossed out of a massive game. Steph has to carry him at the end, bear the emotional weight of the Warriors franchise in that moment and really all season long because of your multiple suspensions. And Draymond's all smiles. Hey, all harm or no harm, all good. I can't imagine Steph loved it. And one more thing before we move on. A couple more things. Because this is, as a Warriors fan, man, this is really, and I love Draymond. That's my guy. But at this point in time, I think it's going to, if it wasn't already, and again, I've been more forgiving of Draymond than most. But Draymond can no longer claim that he's a great teammate. He's going to have to earn that back. I don't know how he's going to do it. I guess just not get ejected anymore. Draymond's second all time in ejections to Rasheed Wallace. I don't anticipate that happening anytime soon, but he's got to earn that back now. He can no longer say, I'm a great teammate, I'm team first. No, you're not. The Gobert thing I defended because you were defending a teammate. Your teammate was about to get chokeholded by a 7-footer. Draymond came in and kind of saved Clay there in a bit of a scuffle. But you punched Yusuf Nurkic unprovoked. We lost you for a month and played bad basketball in that month. You come back, we play really good basketball, and right when we're kind of teetering on the edge, that's when you choose to intentionally get thrown out of a game. He's going to have to earn that now. The last two things, and I'll be quick on these, I promise. I'm just very passionate about this. The last two things revolve around Steph. The first thing is something that Stephen A. Smith said in December, and Jay Williams alluded to others sharing a similar belief. Jay Williams, ESPN, Stephen A. Smith, obviously the face of ESPN. Jay Williams alluded to it yesterday on Get Up and First Take. That a lot of folks out there are questioning Steph Curry's leadership and hold on the Warriors franchise because of Draymond Green's actions. If that's true, and Jay Williams, because people are getting on Jay Williams, oh, you're saying Steph is a great leader. He said, no, Jay Williams said, I know Steph Curry's a great leader, but others who I respect say he's not. If that's true, that is the most immature basketball take I've ever heard in my life. So so Steph Curry's job, and he has many on the Golden State Warriors. My job, be the best shooter, scorer, overall player, and leader for this team. My job is not to babysit. My job, when Draymond loses his mind, is not to somehow find a way to rein him in. If that is bad leadership by Steph for somehow not controlling another grown man's actions, then every player in the NBA is a bad leader. I'm sorry. Steph was in there trying to, again, we showed the tape. Steph, briefly, you see Draymond argue with the ref. Steph gets in there with Draymond. He's like, okay, yeah. And he kind of taps Draymond on the chest like, okay, come on, man. Come on, let's get out of here, man. Let's go. Come on, let's get out. So when Shaquille O'Neal showed up to training camp with the Lakers out of shape, was that Kobe's fault? Was that bad leadership by Kobe Bryant? Hey, big fella, why are you not in shape? No, Kobe's job is to make sure he's in shape. When Dennis Rodman was going to Vegas in the middle of seasons, was that a knock on Michael Jordan's leadership? This idea that Steph is all of a sudden a bad leader because of Draymond having multiple instances that Steph doesn't have a control in the locker room is absolute BS. And it's an unintelligent basketball take. It's point blank. If you want to put some heat on the Warriors franchise because there hasn't been one big punishment of Draymond Green, be my guest. I don't have an issue with that. This idea that Steph has a portion, a slice of the pie of blame is nuts. And last point on Steph. And I did not think I'd ever say this. I really didn't. I thought that this was impossible, and it probably is impossible. If Steph Curry leads this Warriors team, and it's very unlikely, but leads this Warriors team to a championship, the door absolutely, undoubtedly has to open on him being in the GOAT discussion. I have Steph as the sixth greatest player ever. Above him, in order, 1 to 5, I have LeBron, Michael, we can argue about that another day, Kareem, Kobe, Magic. If he wins a championship this year, given all that's happened this season, Magic and Kobe, with all due respect, heck, I'm not sure Kareem ever won a championship with these odds stacked against them. It will be official. The debate will be between LeBron, MJ, and Steph. And Kareem will certainly have a seat at the table. Because being the greatest ever in any sport, in any walk of life, involves defying logic, history, and reason. This would be insane if he pulled this off. That's what I will leave it at. I know that was lengthy. I know that was very passionate. But again, as a Warriors fan, ultimately, like any other fan of any fan base, I want to see my team win. And Draymond Green, right now, as we sit here today, the Warriors actually happen to play in like 15 minutes against the Hornets. He's been standing in the way of that this season. Point blank. And by the way, anybody that says, oh, the Draymond's always been this way. No, he has not. He has not been this way always. In the last 18 months, he's punched Jordan Poole, he's stomped on Sabonis, he's choked Rudy Gobert, he's punched Yusuf Nurkic, and he's gotten tossed out of a game that the Warriors desperately needed. Thank God we were able to still get the W thanks to Steph and Andrew Wiggins. Draymond Green can now no longer say I'm a great teammate. He will have to earn the trust of his teammates and his coach, the organization, and Dub Nation. That simple. All right. Try and again, if there's one thing about this weekend today and all throughout this particular weekend on the calendar every year of Easter, the main message is about forgiveness. Like that is forgiveness, redemption, all of that. To apply it to this situation, Draymond, by all accounts, seems to be a pretty good guy off the court. Family man, his kids are at his press conferences, he's married. Everybody who knows him with the Warriors, with Clutch Sports, Rich Paul, LeBron James, absolutely love him. So I don't think Draymond Green's a bad person. I don't. I think he was immature when he came in the NBA. Off the court, he seemed to really, really address those things as he's grown into being a man. So for that reason, I'm still holding out hope that maybe, just maybe, if nothing else, than to not let down Steph. Can see the error of his ways and change, but as a Draymond Green fan, and I'll always be a Draymond Green fan, I'm skeptical. Maybe he proves me wrong, and I'm pulling for him. All right, shifting now. Back to the NFL draft. So JJ McCarthy is quarterback of the Michigan Wolverines, or former quarterback for the Michigan Wolverines. Michigan won a championship last season. They were the best team in college football season long. I would have still liked to see Georgia get in the college football playoff. I think a Georgia-Michigan championship, which is, I was actually my preseason prediction before the year started. I thought that would have been really good. I thought it would have been a fun, kind of run. But nonetheless, Michigan was the best team, beat Ohio State, beat teams like Penn State like a drum. I mean, they control all of their regular season games. Were able to beat Alabama and control the game against a great Washington team led by a great quarterback, Michael Penix Jr., who I'll talk about in about 10 minutes. But there are mock drafts I've seen some from CBS Sports, from NFL Network, that have had JJ McCarthy going as high as number 2 to Washington or number 3 to the New England Patriots. So in a quarterback draft that has 6 guys that could go, I mean, this is a draft, folks. There are 32 picks. 6 of them could be quarterbacks. Like this is the exact opposite of 2022, which was one of the worst quarterback drafts we've ever seen. Like the best one ended up being Brock Purdy, Mr. Relevant. And regardless of what you think of Purdy, he's not a great quarterback. I don't think you can make that case. I really don't. Not with what's around him and what's asked of him to do. I feel like JJ McCarthy was the Brock Purdy of college football, and because of it, is being overrated right now. Here's what I mean. The traits used to describe JJ McCarthy, that, man, he's great on the whiteboard, right? He can diagnose, he's great writing down plays, understanding what needs to happen, what's going on, like really smart guy, really smart kid, will be able to kind of adjust that in the NFL pretty well. Okay, that's good. Okay, he sees the field well. Okay, that's good too. That's a plus. That's good. But as far as the overall on-field physical tangibles, and these do get overrated sometimes, I get that. We've seen a lot of physically gifted guys do nothing at the next level, and guys who weren't physically gifted be Hall of Famers. But every other quarterback in this draft, with the exception in my mind of Bo Nix, does something special. Caleb does basically everything special. He can run, he's accurate, he's got a monster arm, doesn't turn the ball over. Like, Caleb's darn near the perfect quarterback prospect coming out of college. Okay, Jaden Daniels, insane athlete. I mean, he's like I don't want to say a bigger Lamar Jackson, because Lamar's actually put on a lot of muscle since coming in the league, but he feels like a Lamar Jackson type. Okay. Drake May, cannon for an arm. Footwork isn't great, but neither was Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron has had one of the greatest careers ever. Very similar in terms of throwing motion, technique to Justin Herbert. Like, they're special with Drake May. There's some things that need to be, some coaching that needs to take place there, some good coaching. But if he's able to hit those, to address those issues, he has a chance to be a really, really special player. Okay. Guys like Michael Penix Jr., who I'm going to talk about pretty soon, love the kid. I think he's the second best QB in the draft. I think he's being severely underrated right now. Monster arm, can move in the pocket, accurate, excellent leader, more mobile than he gets credit for because of some previous injuries. They're special there. There's something you can see with your eyes that if they're successful in the NFL, you won't be shocked. Even the guys I'm skeptical about, I'm not sure if Drake May will work at the next level, but if he does, I won't be stunned. JJ McCarthy, and again, I don't want to make it sound like I view JJ McCarthy the same way I view Mac Jones. I thought Mac Jones was the most overrated prospect I've ever seen in my life coming into 2021. I'm like, what does he do exceptionally well? Well, he sees the field. Yeah, it's easy to see the field when you have Devontae Smith running scot-free down the sidelines. By the way, Devontae Smith won the Heisman that year. And he got Najee Harris and the best offensive line and a loaded defense and Nick Saban. It's really hard to screw that up. Really hard. He had a noodle arm, was awful in the pocket. All of the qualities you need to be a successful quarterback, Mac had literally none of them. And as it turns out, a couple years in, we find out he's a bad leader. The teammates don't like him. Coaches don't like him. That is not the case with JJ McCarthy. Harbaugh loves him. Jim Harbaugh, now the coach of the Chargers. He was obviously JJ McCarthy's coach at Michigan. His teammates, man, he's just a great guy, locker room. And there are things McCarthy does well. He's good on third down. He showed some clutch gene. People forgetting that playoff game against Alabama. Michigan's down 7. I mean, this is a do or die situation. led them down the field, particularly with his arm. And Michigan was obviously a run-first team with Blake Corum. Led Michigan down the field with his arm to tie that game, and Michigan went on to win and against Alabama, and of course, went on to win it all in the national title game. But I feel like, and this term often has a negative connotation associated with it, and I can be guilty of that. I don't think it's as bad as some make it seem. But JJ McCarthy at the next level, I think, is going to be a game manager, especially depending on where he goes. Like if JJ McCarthy goes to the Minnesota Vikings, or if he goes to the Denver Broncos, for example. Both teams have excellent offensive coach play callers. Sean Payton with the Broncos, Kevin O'Connell with the Vikings. I love O'Connell. They're going to have really good receivers, good running games, good defense, especially Minnesota. I think Minnesota could be a good fit for McCarthy. Good defenses. You're not going to ask them to put you on. The franchise aren't going to say JJ McCarthy, like, man, kid, we need you to carry us today. That's not going to be his role. The 49ers don't go to Brock Purdy. Brock, man, we need you, man. We need you to put together a special performance today. That's not JJ McCarthy. If he's drafted second to Washington or third to New England, that's what they're going to ask of him. Because when you draft guys second in the draft, third in the draft, you are assuming you are drafting a franchise-changing player. And I don't think he's that. Do I think he's a good starter in the NFL? Absolutely. Again, like a Brock Purdy type, a Tua type. He might be better than Tua because he's a better arm than Tua. But there's nothing on field that I look at JJ McCarthy, I say, man, did you see what he just did? Listen, and I'm not talking about pro days throwing against air in a t-shirt. You know, I think pro days for quarterbacks are meaningless. They don't teach me anything. But I saw Caleb have a terrible offensive line at USC and one NFL receiver and light the world on fire. I saw Michael Penix Jr. Now, mind you, really good offensive line and tremendous receivers, but was able to put them in positions to succeed with his accuracy, his arm strength, and his awareness in the pocket. Jaden Daniels put LSU on his back against an excellent Alabama team, at least for a half. Ended up winning the Heisman Trophy. They're special with these guys. I don't see special with JJ McCarthy. I don't think he's going to be a bust, depending on where he goes. If he goes to a ready-made situation, yeah, he could be successful. I absolutely believe that. But New England needs a lot of work. Washington, while they made some nice moves, need a lot of work. Minnesota, they have holes, but they're not a mess. Neither are the Broncos. They're not a disaster. So I think if Washington or New England, and I actually think Washington's going to take Jaden Daniels. A lot of sources are saying he's probably going to the Commanders. Like I wouldn't say it's a done deal, but I'd say I would be very, very, very surprised if Daniels doesn't go number 2. So then it falls to New England. And then it falls, Arizona's not going to take McCarthy, but Arizona could trade with somebody. They could trade with Minnesota. They could trade with Denver. When you draft somebody that high, you're drafting someone to literally change the franchise as a whole. That's not JJ McCarthy. That's not where I see him anyway. All right. Got a comment here, my man, John Rivera, Fan Perspective Podcast. Check out my guys, John, Henny Dre, Fan Perspective. He says, stay off the weed, Stephen A. Smith voice. That's I think he's referring to the mock drafts having McCarthy as high as they do. Again, I like the kid. Like, I did not see anything that told me Mac Jones was going to succeed at the next level, and I was proven right on that. McCarthy can move. You know, he's accurate enough. He's good on third down. He's good with a run game. That's a game manager. But put the franchise on our back. We got a receiver down, man. Like, let's say he goes to the Vikings. Jordan Addison's down. You know, Justin Jefferson is dealing with a bad ankle. Defense isn't playing that well. We need you to put us on your back. I just don't think that's him. And especially because, and this is my concern with Bo Nix, because they've been in college for so long, it's like, is this the closest thing to what we're going to get of the finished product? So that's the concern with those two. I will say this. I do like McCarthy more than Bo Nix. Bo can move. Arm strength is pretty good, but I simply don't see the same quality. And again, Bo Nix, if I'm correct on this, I think he started more college games than any quarterback ever. Like, so that That stuff you got to take into consideration. That stuff matters when it comes to evaluating talent. As far as a guy who I just mentioned, but we'll go into detail as well on Michael Penix Jr. So according to reports, my Pittsburgh Steelers, after a great pro day, which again, don't put a whole lot of stock in pro days, my Steelers are meeting with Mr. Penix Jr., quarterback of Washington, led the Huskies to a national title game in what was obviously the last year for the Pac-12. And the Pac-12, props to them, man. They went out with a bang. That was the best conference of college football all season long. Washington went 2-0 against Oregon, beat USC, despite a great performance from Caleb. And now my Steelers are meeting with him. And I got to say, I don't like it, but I love it. Here's why. So for obvious reasons, at least from how I feel about Michael Penix Jr., I think the kid is, if Caleb Williams wasn't in this draft, I'd take Penix number one. I'd take him number one. Somebody with that type of arm strength, accuracy, awareness in the pocket, and leadership, those are the qualities that make great quarterbacks. And I think Michael Penix Jr. has those qualities. So, and again, according to a lot of draft evaluators, because his pro day was so great, which again, I don't put stock in pro days for quarterbacks, but his draft stock is rising to the point where it's like, yeah, he's going in the first round. Like, he's going in the first round. Don't be shocked if after the first 3 picks go, Penix could go 3rd overall for all I know. Because I think, again, Caleb's obviously going to the Bears. I'm really, really, really close to 100% sure Jaden's going to the Commanders. If we get down to like the Titans, what are the Titans? Let's look at the draft order right now. Okay, we have the draft order right here. Titans have the 7th pick. The Titans have the 7th pick. Right, they're going to roll with Will Levis. The Falcons have the 8th pick. They obviously have Kirk Cousins. Bears will have obviously already taken Caleb. Jets have already taken Rodgers, or already have Rodgers. So, but there's a few teams there. Could Vegas trade up? Okay, could the Seahawks trade up? Could my Steelers trade up? If the opportunity presents itself to take this kid, I'm snatching it. Because first of all, there's a lot of qualities of Michael Penix Jr. that are kind of similar. Again, he's a lefty, but are kind of similar to Big Ben. Like, people remember the most recent memory of Big Ben in a lot of people's eyes is, man, a lot of injuries, kind of broken down, really kind of a statue in the pocket. Didn't have the greatest end of his career, which, frankly, who does? Most guys, it takes, most people don't retire like Megatron or Barry Sanders and retire at the top of their game. But Big Ben early in his career, monster arm, not crazy accurate, but good enough. Again, he was more of a game manager role with the Steelers. I don't think Michael Penix Jr. will have to do that. But Big Ben could move. Before the injuries, Big Ben could move. Michael Penix Jr., he can move a little bit. Nobody's going to mistake him for Lamar or his potential teammate Justin Fields, but guy can move well enough to get by. Here's why I also think it'd be a good move for the Steelers. And again, the fact that they're meeting with him tells me there's obviously interest. You're not interviewing a candidate for a job if there's not at least some interest on said candidate taking said job. This, to me, would make the Russell Wilson and Justin Fields moves make even more sense. For Russell, you have the veteran. We don't have to play Penix right off the bat. We're not trying to win championships immediately, as we all know the fact. A rookie quarterback has never led his team to the Super Bowl ever in the history of the NFL, or at least in the history of the Super Bowl. Veteran Russell is way better than Kenny Pickett. Russell's limited. He's better than Pickett. He's better than Mason Rudolph, and he's way, 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 way better than Mitch Trubisky. Come in. Don't make mistakes. Rely on the run game. Get the ball to George Pickens. Please get the ball to George Pickens. Develop the kid, Michael Penix, for a year. Russell's on a 1-year contract making peanuts. Penix becomes the quarterback in 2025. You say, well, what does that mean for Justin Fields? I'll tell you exactly what it means for Justin Fields. I think the Steelers, if they take Penix, will treat Justin Fields the way the Cowboys, I think, will treat Trey Lance. Remember where the Cowboys traded for Trey Lance last year? We were like, that's weird. Dak's the guy. Cooper Rush is their backup. What? They're not going to develop Trey Lance. Are they? And I said then, and I believe now, I think Trey Lance is a trade piece. It's one of the very, very, very few good moves Jerry Jones has made. Because I think Jerry looked at that and said, I can turn this. Because people forget, Trey Lance's stock was low. Sam Darnold, a bust. Sam Darnold outperformed Trey Lance in training camp for the 49ers. It was that bad. The stock was very low. Dallas, I think, will trade him for more than what they got him for, which I think is what the Steelers could do with Justin Fields if they take Penix. Because at that point, what's Justin Fields' role? He's not going to want to be a backup. Like after this year, after Russell is likely gone, if they take Penix, Russell's gone after this year. After Russell's gone, what if I'm Justin Fields? I'm like, guys, I'm like 24, 25 years old. Like, what am I doing here? I can't reach my full potential as the backup here, knowing I'm not the guy. I think the Steelers would then trade him to a team that needed a quarterback because next year's draft is not as quarterback loaded as this one is. I'll tell you, if the opportunity presents itself, the Steelers should absolutely jump all over the opportunity to take Michael Penix Jr. I'm telling you, I'm not saying he's like a sure thing because, again, outside of Caleb, I would be – Caleb is not Wembanyama in the sense that, like, Wembanyama, barring injuries, there's not an avenue where he will not be great. The work ethic's there, the gifts are there, all of it. And we're seeing what we're seeing from Wemby this year. Caleb, to me, is in a similar – not quite there, but in a similar class as Wemby in that regard. Penix is not there. But in most drafts, 2022, Penix is the number one overall pick. No questions asked. I think Penix, CJ Stroud, it's at least a discussion. And I love CJ, but it's a discussion. There's a few drafts in there. People are high on Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota 2015. I think Michael Penix was in that draft. He goes number one overall. I really believe that. So, I as a Steelers fan, I'd be over the moon if we took this guy because I think he's that special. That special. So there you go. There's my Michael Penix Jr. stuff. Let's see. So, sorry, I'm just looking at news on the old Twitter app, or what used to be called Twitter. Okay. So Paul Pierce apparently said if Steph Curry wins another ring, he's top 5 all time. Well, if he wins a ring this year, well, I think if he wins a ring in general, he's absolutely top 5 all time. But like I said earlier, with all the chaos, Draymond in trouble over and over and over, trying to bridge the gap between veterans, Draymond, Clay, Chris Paul, with young guys, Kuminga, Moody, Pajemski, Trace Jackson Davis. So trying to bridge generational gaps. Dealing with the decline of Klay Thompson, which has been brutal on Klay and rough on Steph. That's a Splash Brother for crying out loud. They've won championships together. Dealing with the weird decline of Andrew Wiggins. Wiggins is as old as Klay and has had no major injuries. Like, what is up with Wiggins? Dealing with, horribly, the death of an assistant coach 2 months ago. Bob Myers left before this current season. Hall of Fame general manager and very tight with Steph and the veterans. If Steph Curry leads the Warriors to a title this season, and I never thought this could even be possible, what I'm about to say, he joins the greatest player of all time discussion, point blank. Because being in the GOAT discussion, you have to be able to do things that defy logic. Kareem did that. And Kareem has the best basketball resume of anybody, including Jordan and LeBron. Jordan did that. He defied logic. LeBron has defied logic time and time again. As great as Kobe was, Kobe had some crazy streaks. And not just logic. By the way, not just logic, but reason, history. Can you imagine a guy age 36, as accomplished as Steph is, age 36, year 15, as the potential 10 seed in the play-in tournament with the Nuggets looking the way they look and Boston, I'm about to talk about Boston, but in general this season looking the way they look and the Lakers are playing well and the Pelicans are playing great basketball, all this. And Steph's the last man standing, he joins the GOAT discussion. Absolutely. The closest thing we've seen to doing what Steph is going to attempt to do is when LeBron took that terrible Cavs team in 2018 to the finals. That team was awful. LeBron left. They won 19 games the following season. They were terrible. And Ty Lue was their head coach. They were still terrible. This would exceed what LeBron did. And I know LeBron didn't come out with the title. In his defense, he kind of ran into Steph, Draymond, KD at his peak, and Clay at his peak, and Kerr and Iguodala. Like, that team was beating everybody. So I'm just telling you right now, it becomes a discussion. It absolutely becomes a discussion. And Steph would join the Mount Rushmore of the NBA. Again, before we get to our last topic, I am wearing my red today because I have a really bad feeling that this is going to be the peak of the Red Sox season, beating a good Seattle Mariners team on opening day, having a good offensive performance. Rafi Devers, doing what he does. Given the fact that this team is probably going to finish last in the American League East, unless Tampa Bay kind of craters. Tampa Bay's dealt with a lot of obviously off-field drama with one of their players, but assuming this season goes the way I think it's going to go. Now, I'm a Red Sox fan, but I'm a realist. I'm going to kind of enjoy this because I'm winning on opening day, man. It's good. It's a good feeling. It gives you optimism. It's fun. Listen, the Red Sox have a better chance of going 162-0 than the Astros and the Dodgers, for what it's worth. I'm just saying. Just throwing it out there. Shout out to Bryant Bayo as well, by the way. One of the few bright spots on our team. But also, March Madness, which the women's Sweet 16 started today. And I think did Notre Dame win today? I know Notre Dame was the first game. I wasn't able to catch it because of prep for the show. Oregon State beat Notre Dame. South Carolina is up by 4. Undefeated number 1 South Carolina is up by 4 in Indiana with 14 seconds left. So they're kind of in a little bit of a doozy with the Hoosiers. And obviously South Carolina, the pick by many to win the national championship. Again, haven't lost a game all season long. I picked Iowa to get to the national title game and beat South Carolina. Caitlin Clark going out on top. But NC State, Stanford will be fun. See what Cameron Brink's able to do. And then Gonzaga, Texas. But in the men's, and by the way, Caitlin Clark plays tomorrow against Colorado. Colorado's I've watched Colorado this season ever since they beat LSU to start the year. Colorado's a good team. Like that, Iowa needs to be careful. They were in a little bit of a scare with West Virginia. Colorado could beat Iowa. I'm going with Caitlin Clark and the Hawkeyes, but watch out. And I'm praying that Iowa and LSU win tomorrow so we get the rubber match. Or not the rubber match. This has only been the second time they played, but the rematch of last year's national title game. Oh my gosh. Please give me that. The ratings for that one will be insane. Insane. But as far as the men's side, I had some big time upsets yesterday. Bama knocking out UNC, much to my chagrin. Hate Bama. Always will. Always have. And UConn dominating. I mentioned Alabama. Clemson upsetting Arizona. That was an impressive win by the Tigers. We're going to get Clemson, Alabama in the postseason again. It's not like we haven't seen that before. And Illinois upsetting Iowa State. I really liked Iowa State, so that was my bracket's already toast, but that just made it worse. But Gonzaga, Purdue today, Duke, Houston, NC State, Marquette. I think NC State could beat Marquette, actually. And then Tennessee, Creighton. My Vols against Creighton tonight at 10:09. That's at least when the scheduled tip-off is. My Vols are 3.5-point favorites. I'm a little nervous for this one because a Rick Barnes team has yet to go to the Elite Eight Rick Barnes is the head coach of the Vols, has never been to the Elite Eight. So I'm a bit nervous, but I'm still going to roll with my Vols. So what was the final score? 68 to 61. 68-61 Vols win and go to the first Elite Eight. I think Tennessee I think the men's, the Tennessee men's basketball team's only been to one Elite Eight. I could be wrong on that. I think Bruce Pearl took us to an Elite Eight around like 2009, 010, something like that, or not 010, 2010. But I have my Vols losing to UConn in the national championship game in my lone bracket. I'm just going to stick with my Vols. They've defensively, they scare me a little bit given what they've shown in the regular season. But in Dalton Knecht, we trust. In Zakai Ziegler, we trust. Tennessee will win today against Creighton. A really good Creighton team, I might add, and gets the Elite Eight for the first time in the Rick Barnes era. But Rick Barnes in March, while I love the man as a man and as a coach, scares me a little bit. But 68-61 Vols. Let's go Tennessee. Last topic. We only had 2 NBA games last night, I think in part because of some of the March Madness action. One of them was the Pelicans beating the Bucks. It just further reinforces my belief that I don't think Milwaukee can get out of round 2. I really don't. I think if they run to the Knicks, they'll lose. I think they'll lose. If they run to the Heat, they'll lose. Philly would be interesting depending on how healthy Embiid is, but because I don't trust Embiid in the playoffs, probably roll with Milwaukee. If they run into Indiana, it's a conversation. Indiana's not as good as Milwaukee, but crap, they beat him 4 out of 5 times this year. There's something that's working against the Milwaukee Bucks from a matchup perspective. But the other game, though, the Atlanta Hawks beat the Boston Celtics. Again, with no Trae Young. Trae Young's been out for some time now, but the Celtics lose to the Hawks for, by the way, the second straight game because the Celtics played the Hawks on, I believe it was Tuesday, and blew a 30-point lead to Atlanta. And absolutely, again, just choked it down the stretch. And the Hawks won with DeJounte Murray dropping, was it 44 points on 44 shots? Yeah, he tied Kobe Bryant and Russell Westbrook for the most shots taken in a regulation, or not regulation, but just an NBA game in general. And Atlanta, who I don't think anybody in their right mind views as anything more than a play-in team, but they knock off the Boston Celtics for the second straight game in Atlanta. So there's a lot of concern for Boston following this, and I get it. I really do. Boston down the stretch, their clutch numbers are not anything to go crazy about. They're kind of middle of the pack in that regard in the last 5 minutes of games. Again, for those that don't know, clutch games are games within 5 with under 5 minutes to go. So that's kind of the gist of it. And Boston struggled. I think they're like 15th in field goal percentage, something like that. Like they don't win a lot of close game or clutch games. They don't perform particularly well in close games. Again, I think a major reason for that, or there's 2 reasons. I don't think Boston really has a pure point guard. Like Drew Holiday is like a semi-hybrid-ish point guard, but not a true point. But way more than that, the only thing that will hold Boston back, and I've said this since last season with the Celtics, Joe Mazzulla is not a good coach. I've been saying this since last year. The lack of adjustments he makes in the series is disturbing, man. He did make one adjustment, I think, against Philadelphia in the second round. He changed his starting 5 a little bit, but that's about it. Like, the guy seems in over his head in certain big moments. If he faces Eric Spoelstra, that's just, well, we faced Eric Spoelstra last year, and I get Boston got back in the series, but the Heat were the better team in that 7-game series. There's no question. Okay, if he matches up against a Nick Nurse, Boston's better than Philly. I'd pick them to beat Philly, but Nick Nurse won a championship. Nick Nurse is a good coach. No question about it. If he runs a Rick Carlisle of the Pacers, Rick Carlisle's won a championship. Very accomplished guy. Indiana's a heck of an offensive team. So all those have to be taken into consideration. That said, listen, y'all know, longtime listeners and viewers of the show know that I am a man who believes in pick integrity, which is that when I make my pick, regardless of how strongly I feel about my pick, that's my pick, and I can't change it. I believe you go down with the ship with your prediction, whether it's to win the championship, to win a game, you stick with that pick come hell or high water. And I'm sticking with my Boston Celtics. No, with the Boston Celtics. I'm a Warriors fan. To get to the NBA Finals and lose, I picked them to lose to my Warriors. It feels likely they'll probably lose to Denver. I absolutely believe Denver's a better basketball team than everybody, including the Boston. But I'm not concerned about, can they make a run in the East? I'm really not. Because when you look at the Eastern Conference, again, you look at the standings right now, Boston's obviously a mile ahead of everybody else. They're 11 games ahead of the 2-seed Milwaukee Bucks. 11 games. Okay, it's not even close. The Bucks, y'all heard me on Wednesday. I do not buy them at all. Doc Rivers in playoff series, really bad. Okay, Giannis, Damian Lillard, the fit isn't as good as I thought it would be. I'm very excited for my man Barry Grant Jr. Shout out to Barry, All Even Podcast, to give his kind of X's and O's take about Giannis and Dame in terms of their lack of fit. I'm going to piggyback off of what he says, because we were talking the other day about it, and he made a great point that I said, I'm not going to say that. This is your take. I want you to tell the world about this, because it's so true when I watch the game with that in mind, with what Barry said in mind. So definitely, be sure to check out the All Even Podcast coming up pretty soon. So, but Dame and Giannis don't fit particularly well. They're not good defensively. They're a middle of the pack basketball team since they hired Doc Rivers. They're 14-13. They're middle of the pack. Okay. The Knicks, I think, are a contender, and I've said as much when I did my pretenders and contenders segment about a month ago. The issue with the Knicks, their fatal flaw is, I don't know if they have a consistent number 2 scorer to Brunson. I like Julius Randle. He was an all-star this year. They're getting Mitchell Robinson back. DiVincenzo's been good. Josh Hart has been kind of their glue guy. But historically, with Tom Thibodeau coach teams, what do we kind of lament about? What do we kind of lament with Tom Thibodeau coach teams? Boy, they're behinds off in the regular season, and because of that, they are spent once the playoffs roll around. I mean, Josh Hart in a game against my Warriors this season played all 48 minutes. Props to him. And he's still a relatively young guy, so it's not going to impact him as much as it would somebody, like, say, in their mid-30s. But don't we see, once the Knicks get in these playoff series, or Tom Thibodeau coach teams in playoff series, don't they look kind of gassed? Don't the other team look like they have a lot more juice than they do? So that, to me, I think will derail the Knicks, as much as I like them, and as much as I do think they can make a run. But if they go down, that's kind of where I think it will hurt them. I'll do my playoff weaknesses and strengths before the playoffs start. Cleveland can't score consistently on offense. They just can't. So I don't buy into them at all. They haven't won a playoff series since LeBron left. The Magic, just too young. I love Paolo Banchero. I really like their supporting cast. Jalen Suggs was one of my favorite college players back at Gonzaga. Still too young of a team. Indiana doesn't play any defense whatsoever. They're like the opposite of Cleveland. Look down the list. Miami. Problem with Miami, again, I still bind in Miami because heat culture, playoff Jimmy, Eric Spoelstra. We saw what they did a year ago in the playoffs, and even in 2022 when the roster didn't necessarily stack up to other rosters out east. But again, once they match up with a team that is smart, that is well coached, that is, again, they ran to Boston 2022. They came close, but Ime Udoka, I'm going to say Udoka's not a better coach than Spoelstra. I think Spo's the best coach in basketball, but Udoka's a much better coach than Mazzulla. There's no question about that. You're seeing what he's doing in Houston. Okay. If they got a team that kind of plays together more so than they do, not that Miami doesn't play together, but again, Denver's a prime example last year. Denver was just a better team. And Denver had an excellent coach, and Denver knew what they were going to do on offensively, particularly in the last 5 minutes of games, and Miami really couldn't combat that. Miami is the ultimate opportunistic team in the sense that if a team has a fatal flaw, they will expose it. Because Spoelstra is that smart of a guy. He's going to figure out what it is. Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, the rest of those guys will figure it out. So I do think Miami is a contender, but that's kind of their flaw. They just don't have the roster upside that a lot of these other teams have. Philly, don't trust at all because I don't trust Embiid and I don't trust his health. So, and against Chicago, Atlanta, like at that point, we're kind of out of teams. So I get the concern with Boston, but the reason I'm not selling stock, let me put it this way. If your take on Boston because of the point differential, because of the record, all of that, I still don't think they've lost to an Eastern Conference team at home this year. I could be wrong on that, but I don't think they have. If you're concerned with the Celtics, or if your belief in the Celtics was, man, this team's going to roll everybody, well, then you're probably concerned because your expectations were too high. But if your belief was, yeah, they're going to win the East, I wouldn't be concerned at all because that was my pick. Every team in the NBA, Denver doesn't look like they have that many flaws, but I'm sure there's something teams can expose. Coaches far smarter than me, or people that know basketball far more than me, I'm sure can figure it out. Maybe if they have one. So I'm not going to panic with Boston. The 30-point loss or losing a 30-point lead was pretty darn concerning. Again, this one, DeJounte Murray hit a shot at the end. They came close, and Boston fell at the end, but not going to panic on these 2 straight losses. People forget, like, they lost a big lead to Cleveland and then went on to win 9 straight games. They lost, I think it was to Denver, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was Denver. And then they reeled off like a million wins in a row. So wouldn't overreact too much to the Celtics back-to-back losses to the Atlanta Hawks. All right, that is all the time we have for today's show. I appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. I am hopeful that by then I will be able to celebrate, get on my orange. You see a couple Tennessee football helmets here. Got my white Tennessee helmet, got a special Smoky Mountain, the Great Smoky Mountains here in the beautiful state of Tennessee helmet that my amazing sister got me for Christmas. Shout out to my sister for that. Diehard Vols fan. I got a Vols basketball behind me right there. I am hopeful that I'll be coming, celebrate, be singing Rocky Top to the top of my lungs on this show on Monday. And you know what, Tennessee, we're going to win on we're going to win tonight against Creighton, 68-61. And Purdue's going to go down today to Gonzaga, and Tennessee's going to be a well-coached Mark Few Gonzaga team that just doesn't have quite the talent they used to. And Tennessee's going to win that one 70-67. And my Vols, I've been waiting for this for some time, will be in the Final Four next weekend. And I'll be as happy as any man in America on Monday's show. So stay tuned for that, 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific time on YouTube and on Twitter. Of course, also be sure to like, share, comment, and please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there. Helps the channel grow exponentially. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the NBA playoffs. I think last I checked, I think we're at 927. Maybe we've grown since then. If so, thank you so much. And again, if you have not subscribed, please do so. Just takes a couple seconds. Hit that big red subscribe button down there and you're part of the Carving It Up family. We would greatly, greatly appreciate it. If you have subscribed, thank you so much as well for taking time out of your day for supporting this show, for supporting its content. I cannot tell you, this show is nothing without the audience. Point blank. I can do the greatest show that's ever been done, and it will not matter if you, the people, do not tune into the show and support it the way that y'all have. So thank you so much. And so, again, hit that bigger subscribe button if you have already. Be sure to tell your friends about it, your family about it, everybody about it. Carving it up live. See, John Rivera just has to end the show on a sour note. Let's go, Yankees. Ugh, get out of here, John. Get out of here. You know what, though? It was an impressive win against Houston yesterday. I wasn't able to play the Big Papi soundbite, but I will in the future. Not everybody can go 162 now. Red Sox may. I don't know. Anyways, we could have we got a big orange celebration on Monday. Matter of fact, we are going to have a big orange themed celebration on Monday. Be there 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific time. We're going to have some fun, and we're going to have a lot of fun. Let's go. Let's be singing Rocky Top. Go Vols. All right. See y'all then. Please stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America. This is an issue that I am very, very passionate about, regardless where you lean, right, left, center. This is something that impacts all of us and something that we all need to come together to stop in any way that we can. There's not one answer to it. There's a lot of different ways we can combat this. And so let's do our part in order to address this problem. All right. It is Easter Sunday. It is Easter weekend. Easter Sunday is coming, ladies and gentlemen. And very excited about that. Sweet 16 today. Elite 8 the next few days. The men's bracket, the women's bracket. Here we go. LSU Iowa potential game on Monday. Monday's going to be a fun show, I'm telling you right now. All right, stay safe out there, y'all. God bless you. Peace out. It's going to be a Red Sox fan today, at least for now. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.